And it looks like we're live. There we go. Welcome, welcome, everybody. So we've got people pouring in here. Not terrifying at all for me, promise. So we'll give it a couple of minutes while that attendee number just keeps going up and up and up. And again, definitely not terrifying. How has it been going, actually? I was trying to see what everyone came from, like what some of the earlier sessions were. It looks like we had the new Salesforce connector. See here. I figure while everyone's getting in here, I might as well just check out who I'm following. Okay, that's pretty fun. Yeah, it was the webhook connector in the file storage solutions. Did anyone end up going to that one? Yeah, I bet that was a really fun one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to watch the recording later. That'll be a pretty good time. How are you doing, Joelle? For those who didn't know, Joelle's here.
Hello. I like in the chat, someone said, we're nice people.
Aw,
Yes, I
thank you.
agree.
That's so kind, Simon. Making me feel better today. That's a wonderful thing. For those who don't know, we have a lovely little box where we can see anything you put into the Q&A box. So feel free to toss stuff in there. It doesn't just have to be questions. All right, let's take a look here. Looks like we're still getting a couple more people coming in. I'll give it another like 60 seconds or so before we get started. But it looks like Brendan is asking the question of the hour, my favorite question. So just so everybody knows, this webinar will be recorded. Yay! It will be recorded. Joel, they'll get sent it as well as it being available on the page.
Yes. You'll receive an email next week with the recordings of all the sessions you signed up for, and then all the recordings for all the sessions will be available on our website. So if there is a session that you're just like, oh, I forgot to sign up for it, don't worry. You can still catch that recording on our website.
Perfect. Thank you, Joelle. And oh, Nancy, I'm so glad you're enjoying yourself. And we also have a wonderful comment about, unfortunately, it looks like Nashville's not doing so great on the weather front, which is unfortunate. Sending you the best of wishes that the weather gets better over there. All right, it looks like we're at a pretty good time to get started, I believe. So yeah, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Kayla. I'm your fearless knowledge and trading manager, and we're about to take a nice little like deep dive into the hidden gems of FormAssembly. It's gonna be all the features that make you go, wait, I can do that. And I've been at FormAssembly for 7 years now, so I think I have a decent enough idea of the hidden gems here. So just a reminder, if you did miss it, the webinar is being recorded. Feel free to drop any questions you have in that questions box or non-questions where it's just wonderful comments. Again, I love reading those. And before we dive in, I want to just introduce the two fantastic people who are here to help make sure you actually know how to use FormAssembly, which is always half the battle. So first we've got Lauren. That's our training enablement specialist. So if you've ever read our help documentation, then you've heard her writing voice. It's that super reassuring tone. You know which one I'm talking about. That's Lauren. So she's basically the narrator of FormAssembly's like internal monologue. So say hello, Lauren.
Hello.
Can finally put a voice with the thing that they read. It's my favorite. We also have Joelle here, our product trainer. And if you've ever attended a FormAssembly training webinar or her session yesterday, then you know Joelle. So everybody say hello to Joelle.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Yay. Oh, I'm so excited for this, actually. This is going to be fantastic. So today we're focusing on something that I'm very passionate about, which is taking advantage of underutilized but like super powerful features, the hidden gems, the tools that can help you level up your forms, your workflows, and the insights you get from them. Those who don't know, I'm like a massive data nerd, so like I'm going to be walking you through a lot of that type of use case. Today we're going to be focusing on sentiment and feedback collection, but the goal is just to spark ideas that you can take and run with no matter what your use case is. So here is what is on the agenda. First things first today, we are going to be talking about the Salesforce import tool. So I know that we actually covered that in another session very briefly, and people had questions about it. So I'm very excited to go into it just with a little bit more detail. This allows you to build forms dynamically using your Salesforce data, super handy. We're also going to go over dynamic pick list pairing. So that's making your forms a little bit smarter with real-time data filtering. And we're going to do some data transformation. That's when you can anonymize and process your data on the fly. So there will also be live demos, of course, because what's better than me telling you how awesome it is? It's me showing you. So first, though, let's talk about what makes FormAssembly pretty darn awesome. So if you've used it before, which I assume many of you have, then you know that this is an incredibly flexible tool we're dealing with here. It's really amazing in that way, but what makes it truly fantastic is like how you can customize beyond those basics. It's like that one coworker who can do everything and then also does it better than you kind of expected. It's flexible, it integrates with Salesforce really well, automates workflows, makes your life easier. So now that we've talked a little bit about those things and I've given the wonderful spiel about how much I love FormAssembly, let's zoom in on some of the hidden gems I mentioned earlier. And so I'm going to share my screen. There it is. Incredible. Okay, so I've shared my screen and we're going to go over one of my favorite things, which is the Salesforce import tool. So that's actually over here on the left side. You're going to see import from Salesforce. And this opens up Salesforce form import. If you've been manually building your Salesforce integrated forms from scratch, this is going to be a great one for you. You can actually use this tool to automatically create forms with the fields and connector mappings already based on your Salesforce objects of choice. So first things first, though, we're connecting to Salesforce right now. It's fairly straightforward, but my classic Kayla Salesforce tips start coming in here. So if you're looking at this and you do not see, the objects or fields that you're expecting to see, I'm actually going to recommend that you double check your permissions in Salesforce. This authentication actually means that we're respecting your Salesforce permissions. So in that case, there might be something in your Salesforce profile that's kind of getting in the way of you seeing something here. So that's always my first note. And if you really want to future-proof your integration, I always recommend using like a dedicated integration user in Salesforce to keep things like clean and secure. It's also easier to debug because you can see like the really clean audit trails. And then you're not tied to someone's login, of course. So pro tip from me there. But here we've got all of our fields on the contact. I'm going to go ahead and just select a couple of these. And, email, first name, last name. And then I actually have custom objects. And like I said, we're going to talk some feedback and sentiment analysis, right? So when I come on down here and I'll grab my sentiment field, you can see that I've got a few fields here related to sentiment. And if I scroll down, would you look at that? It's the beginnings of a form. Fantastic. I can see them here. And when I click save, it's going to create my form and Salesforce connector. Hooray. It even sets up the mappings for you. I'll show you that first. This saves so much time, actually. So you can see here that it's already got my create contact and create sentiment. I can be coming in here and editing these, setting my relationships and whatnot. It's already in here, which is great. But I'll save it and I'm going to show you the form quick. Go over here to build. We're going to make some small changes to this form because obviously it's just pulled these things in outright, but that doesn't mean we have to, live with this as is. If I go ahead and click on this NPS field, which is again related to my sentiment record in Salesforce, I can click options and I can actually change this to a drop-down menu. I personally think that a drop-down menu is a little bit better in terms of, the user experience versus a text field for that one. But I actually have it in Salesforce as a text field. So that's why it pulled it in as a text field. So I've made that change, save the form. And then when I go back into my connector, you'll actually be able to see that, here it is, my NPS field is now using send as values. So I know that that's a quite quick little demo of this. So obviously ask any questions you may have, but I just wanted to show this because I do think that this is a heavily underutilized feature. It's a great starting point. It's of course not like your final draft. I like to think of it as like scaffolding, it's going to get your structure into the places where you need them to be so you can keep fine tuning from there. Of course, you can always add, hidden fields and default values, the logic, and keep mapping the connector and building. But this way, I don't have to worry so much about my connector mappings getting a little questionable, and that Salesforce logic getting a bit spicy, because I'll be able to map to my fields in Salesforce without having to remember whether it was like contact sentiment or customer emotion or whatever I set the API name to be last week that I may not remember right now. So I know that the mappings are clean. I know that we've got consistency across the platforms. That's one of my favorite things anyways. So before we move on, I do want to get some pro tips from Joelle. Joelle, would you like to share any tips for everyone?
Yes. Oh my gosh. There are so many things that the Salesforce import tool can be used for. And we had someone in the chat say that this is a total game changer. And I agree. But one tip that I always have whenever you're creating any forms, even with the Salesforce import tool, is to choose your fields wisely. I know whenever I'm filling out fields, if I have a lot of fields that I'm like, oh my gosh, when am I going to get to the end of the form? It can overwhelm me. So you just want to be sure and conscious that you're choosing the fields that you need from your respondents so you're not overwhelming them and you're getting what you need from them. Then next up, test out your form. There's so many different ways you can build out your form, see how it works, but also no one wants a glitchy form. So just give it a test run before you launch to make sure everything's working perfectly for your respondents and going through your connector accurately. Before I hand it back over to you, I do also want to say that keep putting those questions in. We will have a live Q&A session here at the end where we'll be getting all of those questions. So please put those questions in there for you guys.
Absolutely. And honestly, debug logs are some of my favorite things in Salesforce. I like to turn those on actually for my integration user for that specific testing reason. If everything works in the beginning, it's what, measure 3 times, cut once, or whatever it is. Very much the situation here. So we're going to move on to another hidden gem. And this one is paired dynamic pick lists. So this is about that satisfying feeling when you're on a website, you choose a drop-down menu item, then the next drop-down menu item just like magically filters to exactly the stuff you need. We're about to do that here. So in this example, I'm still building my sentiment collection form. Yay. So we've let our respondent, in this case, choose a product category. However, then I want this next field here to dynamically update to only show the products within that category so they can select from there. Like simple for them, smart for the data, exactly what we're going for. So we actually use this for something in the knowledge team. FormAssembly is constantly improving. So like the list of features that you can provide feedback on is also constantly changing. So in terms of data collection and analysis, that can obviously be a bit of a nightmare, especially for those Salesforce reports. So to accommodate for this in Salesforce, I created a custom object called product, and it can be referenced as a lookup field on the sentiment records. And that way, if we make changes to the product, then we can quickly identify like which sentiment is related to the existing feature and update the product or mark it as resolved. It's a great way to do it. Actually, this is one of my developer accounts in Salesforce. So you can kind of see what that sentiment record would look like. I put in some, test data in there, but you can see that it's linking to the dynamic pick list product. So if I make updates to that, I'll be able to look back, find the related sentiment, update accordingly. It's a pretty fun one to do. But of course, we would, then want on these products, you don't want to have a list of hundreds of products. That would also be a bit complicated. So I've added a drop-down right here. It's just got a few different options for product categories, and that's how I can then group the sentiment under product categories for further reporting. So that's just a tiny bit of background there on what we're doing here. So how do we reflect this in the form? Well, we're going to use 2 dynamic pick lists. So if I open up this dynamic pick list, a dynamic pick list, for those who don't know, looks inside of Salesforce and fills out the pick list accordingly. So we've got this right here is the object. It's product demo. That's the name of, again, my demo version of the object. And then you've got the product category, which is the pick list. So as I update that pick list in Salesforce, it would actually reflect it on any form that's referencing it with a dynamic pick list, which is really cool. So you can see that list right here. I could add to it, remove to it, whatever I need to do. then this is where the magic happens. So what we've got here is a second pick list that's pulling from Salesforce as well, but this time it's actually looking for those product records. And it's going to filter them based on the category. You can see it's based on this condition of product category equals product category field. So it's going to filter down the products into a list of only the ones related to the category, return the name and the record ID. So that way someone can select a product from there. And then I can even show it to you here. There it is. So you can see that we've got workflow steps and workflow responses as two types of products within the workflow category. And I can even map the ID to a hidden field to use for later processing. It's one of my favorite ways to use this. And as a bit of a way to level this up, you can also add like more filters. For example, in our internal one, I've actually added a little checkbox in Salesforce called active. And so only active products would show up, because I could go in here and add another condition and say, and the active checkbox is checked. And that way, if something is not active, I can uncheck it and we're not cluttering up the form with like deprecated values. And of course, this isn't just for products. You could use paired dynamic pick lists for user roles or departments or office locations or anything where like you're selecting, one thing to narrow down another list. And that way your data is all clean and your users are happy. So if you have any questions and or use cases you want to share, definitely put those in the Q&A box. But I'm actually going to say that you could also do what I do and ask Joelle for any other pro tips. Joelle, do you have any tips to share?
Yes, one of my favorite things to do, because I'm sometimes forgetful, I will admit, I like to make notes for my future self, both either in a hidden field on my form, so I can outline what my dynamic pick list is doing, or also in the revisions on your form, you're able to add notes to that specific revision. And then that way I can leave notes for myself of how the Salesforce objects are working, the fields and filters, and what all of those are doing, so that my future self will thank me whenever I need to revisit it down the road. So just take a second to be like, what notes do my future self might need from this?
I do love that. I love notes too. It's one of my favorites. So you can tell that we're just nerding out here. So this one is just a continuation of that. This is absolutely one of my favorite ways to use the product in every of them. So I love to talk about this, which is the like analysis of the feedback that you've collected, right? There can be a real issue here when you're collecting feedback of, oh, I'd love to get this analyzed, but it's full of personally identifiable information. Oh no. So what we are going to talk about today is real-time data transformation. It's a little bit of like behind the scenes magic, and it's going to help like anonymize and prep your data on the fly. That way it's like ready for analysis. So I am in Salesforce, and for the sake of saving time for questions, I already started building my workflow. But to give you an idea of just how easy it is, if I want to move my sentiment analysis form in, I can move it in here this quickly. So just so you know, that's how fast it was for me to move my form into the workflow so that I could use it. The connector for Salesforce moved in with it. Love that, just saying. But what we're going to use here is our Google Sheets connector. Now, this is a workflow native version of the connector. There's a form version. What I'm about to show you is kind of specific to workflow, but there is a way to use it in the form too. I'll tell you in a minute. The point is, I have chosen a Google Sheet of mine, right? The sentiment analysis sheet. And I have actually mapped all of my various like form fields into the various columns. And what I'm doing here is collecting the data and determining how it's going to appear in that spreadsheet. So while Salesforce gets all of like the granular data, this is where we're going to get an analysis ready version. So for example, if I go here, you notice there's a bunch of formulas. I actually have columns in my sheet in a separate column for each feedback reason. And the reason for that is because I want to use these formulas to fill in a different column with ones and zeros and little binary flags to determine what type of feedback it is. So this is saying if it was support feedback, it will put a 1 in the support column, and that continues for the rest. But of course, it's easier if I just show you. This is the one with kind of some of my test data in it, but you can see here that I've got these columns indicating support, sales, regular feedback product. And whichever one they selected in the form, it's marking that here. So that's really important. If you want to do like correlation analysis and stuff, that's a great way to pre-process your data. I've also put in the date. And on top of this, I've also got up here this formula. It's taking the workflow response ID and putting it into column A instead of, say, the first name, last name, or email. That's obviously a great idea when you want to make sure that your team is seeing like clear, filterable data where they can build visual dashboards and spot patterns, but it's also anonymized. You don't have to worry about that personally identifiable information. This is one of my absolute favorite ways to handle data, is not just sending it through, say, a Salesforce connector, but doing something like this as well, so that we can anonymize the data and really like get into that analysis. If you were to use the form connector, you can. The thing there is that it's not quite as customizable. It sends all the form data to the Google Sheet. So what you could do though, right, is you can make another sheet, like another tab. Easier if I show you. You can make another sheet or another tab down here and protect this first one. So you could limit this first one where it would, only be visible by you, for example, and then the analysis could occur in the second sheet. It's not quite as much in the way of, like I said, pre-processing and anonymizing the data as it would be in this workflow connector, but it is still doable. So I just wanted to make sure to share that little pro tip. But obviously, this is something I'm very excited about. So this doesn't have to stop at privacy. You can use this technique to like categorize the data, to enrich it with lookups. You can trigger other tools with this. And if you're already doing anything like this, cool stuff like this with FormAssembly, the pick lists, or anonymizing your data, I would love to hear about it. So I know the Q&A box is also for questions, but if you want to drop any use cases you have in there, I would love to either steal your ideas, or maybe, I'll share them with the group if they're really cool, but mostly I'm trying to steal your ideas. But while you share those use cases, pretty please, I would like to wrap this up with a quick tip from Joelle.
Yeah, so my final tip for everyone is this doesn't have to be just used for anonymizing your data. Not every single piece of data that you collect may need to stick around forever. So if you need something that you're just like, hey, I need to analyze this, or I need to collect the catering menu for an event or something, just send over those essential fields to your Google Spreadsheet connector using the workflow native Google Sheets connector. This can reduce the clutter, streamline your data, and lead to your cleaner, more focused insight. So you get that information in the hands of people that need it very clearly, and just the information they need and nothing more.
Thank you, Joelle. So, I mean, we're running out of question time, so I'll just blast through this last bit and recap quick, just to say, yes, to recap, we explored some of the hidden gems, the Salesforce import tool, paired dynamic pick lists, real-time data transformation. It's only been 10 minutes. I won't re-speak everything. The important thing to know is that you're now one step closer to becoming a FormAssembly wizard. Congratulations on that. And just remember that whether you're building a sentiment analysis form like I am, or doing something completely different, the goal is still the same, which is work smarter, not harder. So thank you so much. I'm opening the floor for questions now, and any ideas and use cases, I'm just saying. But Joelle, are there any questions that we should be answering?
Yes. So the first thing that I've seen a couple questions with this for is people are a little bit confused of what plan level you need for the different features, and if for the Salesforce import tool specifically, if you have to use that at the start of the form, or can you use it in the middle? So kind of little things.
Gotcha. Yes, so Salesforce import tool is used at the beginning because it builds the form and the connector. It kind of pulls all that in and, again, makes you that scaffolding. So it does have to be used at the beginning. Dynamic pick lists are available, I believe, on Essentials plans and up, and Workflow is on Teams and up. But if any of you guys want to demo any of that, you could just ask our sales team. I'm ssure they would love to show you any of this. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they can all be used individually as well. So you don't have to be like, oh yeah, I have to use the Salesforce dynamic pick lists on a Salesforce imported created form. No, you don't have to do that. You can use them individually. Okay, the next question that I've got is, ooh, there's so many good ones. I'm seeing a lot of, okay, so I've got a question for you, Kayla. There are some that we've got that are specific to yours, or there are also ones that we could share even more tips with.
Wait, can you repeat that? What was the question?
So there's a couple questions that are not directly related to the topic, but I found one that we could share an extra special tip with.
Okay. What's that?
So this is from Deb, last one question. Sorry, so many questions are coming in. They're coming in fast and okay. So, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I just lost the question I was trying to find. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay. Let's pick another one. If it pops up,
yes.
we'll answer it later.
Okay, so for this one, they're asking, can you use the Salesforce import with workflows?
Okay. I mean, yeah, because the thing is that you'd use the Salesforce import tool to build the form, and it would have the connector on it, and then you could just import it straight into the workflow. Just so you know, I know that I pre-made them like it's a cooking show and I have the turkey already in the oven. I 100% built it this way before this even started. So yeah, great way to do it.
Perfect. Okay, so for the next one, this is coming from Charles. He asked, for dynamic pick lists, do you need to refresh on opening? So there is that refresh option. He's just asking, do you need to refresh when you open it?
No, you totally don't need to. Well, okay. So here's the deal, right? So you set up the authentication. Basically, FormAssembly looks over at Salesforce and goes, hey, what kind of objects and fields do you have? And Salesforce goes, here you go, and like hands you a menu is basically how that works. The problem is if Salesforce adds to that menu, because like you go in, you add some special fields or make changes to an object, that's when you need to hit refresh, because then it checks again to see if there's a new menu. That was a strange way for me to describe that, but that's the best way I can think of to describe when you have to hit refresh.
Perfect. Okay. And then there was just some more clarifying questions with that one too, that I do also want to address, that you can refresh on the connectors as well. It's not just with the Salesforce. So if you do have any new objects or anything, you can easily do that. This one is a good one. So if we are using workflow, is it recommended to build out the connector in the form first or the workflow first?
Ooh, okay. I love this question. Okay, so here's the difference, right? So the difference here is that when you build out a connector in workflow, it's going to be specific to that workflow, which is super handy, right? For a variety of reasons, because based on your workflow and business process, you're probably wanting to deal with different objects, different fields, right? Also, the workflow native connectors have some extra goodies that makes that extra fun. If you guys saw the new Salesforce connector, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But the point is that the times where I build it on the form are mostly if that form will be existing on its own, or I have actually done it before where I did it when I wanted to use that form in multiple workflows and bring the same connector in over and over and over, and then like make edits to it inside the workflows so that it did a little bit of different stuff, like an advanced copy and paste situation. That's times where I've built it prior to the workflow. But the big thing is that, yeah, if you want to build them in workflow, you won't lose out on anything because obviously you're probably going to make small changes in each workflow anyway.
Yes. Okay, perfect. The next question is from another Joelle. Welcome, another Joelle. I always love to see my name out there in the wild too. So she asked, how can I continue to test new changes on a live form or workflow in, like, she uses Salesforce, or they use Salesforce UAT, while the live form / workflow is connected to a production instance? I hate having to clone and reconnect everything. It takes forever.
Okay, that's a great point. I like that you mentioned cloning, by the way. So here's the deal, right? Is that we do not have like a draft version yet. I say yet because if everybody asks very nicely in the feedback form, we have it on our website, I'm just saying, our product team actually reads all of those. And it's a fantastic thing. So please do submit any feedback you have like that. Let us know your use cases, exactly like this one on, why cloning wasn't really doing it for you. Because I myself, I do clone, test it out over there, and then make the changes in the live one. But I totally understand what you're saying about why you don't. So definitely fill out feedback. Definitely put in why you want it. And like I said, they really do. They read all of them. It's amazing.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I think that's actually all we have time for questions. I think we went over a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. But it's always good to see all the questions. So if you have any more questions, feel free to, before you go, head over to that resource center. There is more documentation on different things. You can set up a personalized demo with our sales team so that you can see all the things that we talked about. And as a reminder, the session has been recorded. So next week, we'll email out the recording to everyone so you can rewatch it, or you can head over to our website to watch any of the recordings from FormFest. But yeah, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. And we had so much fun answering your questions.
Oh yeah, don't mind me. I'm just casually stealing our use cases out of the Q&A box. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I really had a lot of fun. I hope we get to do this again soon.